Welcome to this session. In this session, we will discuss the third and fourth category of Vaisesika philosophy. We were discussing about substance or dravya, and also the second category is guna or quality. As you know, according to Vaisesika, there are 7 categories or padarthas. Padartha stands for the object and having a particular name. Further, they said that to be a padartha, it has to satisfy 3 features. One is astitva, the uniqueness of that object. The second one is that we can think of it, we can know that object. Knowability, the knowability characteristics must satisfy that object. The third one is nameability, there is a name we must give to that object, so that that object will be identified with having a particular name. So therefore 3 things, 3 qualities, 3 characteristics or 3 features that we need to find in an object, so that we can say that that element or object is known as padarthas according to Vaisesika philosophy. What are these 3? One is astitva, jnatva and avidhyatva. By considering these 3 features, they said that there are 7 padarthas. And what are those 7 padarthas? They are dravya, guna, action, samanya, samavaya, then we have vishesha and abhava. I repeat, dravya or substance, guna or quality, action or karma, samanya or generality, then samavaya or inherence, then vishesha or particularity, and the last one is known as abhava or non-existence. The first 6 were mentioned by Kanchana and the last one is mentioned by the later thinkers. So therefore in total we find 7 categories, and further I hope you might have remembered, as I told you, that for them there are 9 substances, and out of 9 substances few are eternal and few are non-eternal. We had already discussed about all these things. Today we will discuss about the third category or padartha known as karma or action, and also we will discuss the fourth category which is known as samanya or generality. Now let us discuss karma or action. We will see how Vaisesika really argue that action or karma is an independent padartha among other padarthas, and how they will explain that action. Let us discuss. Before discussing Vaisesika's standpoints on action, we must understand there is a common understanding of action. When I say karma, what do you mean? When I say karma, you mean there is a action. If I say that please do not do that karma, that means please do not do that action. If I say that that action is good, that means I am identifying to a particular action, stating that this is good or this has resulted a good value for you as well as for the society. If I say that bad karma results the bad effect, good karma result the good effect, or good karmas bear the good fruit, what we understand from my sentences is that there is a karma, there is a action, there is a motion, there is a movement, and of course if an individual is doing some or other actions, there will be a result for that. Therefore now in our common understanding we have understood that karma stands for action or a movement. Now Vaisesika system also agreed to that, but they have a particular standpoint, or they have a different way of explaining action. Now that point we need to discuss in this class. Now broadly, if you find that action is of 2 types, one is metaphysical action, another is epistemological action. Metaphysical action talks about that every action has a result. As I said, As you sow, so you reap. The famous sentence you might have heard many times, as you sow, so you reap. If you have understood the content, you have studied skills, you have done better in your examination, you can score good grade. And if you are fixed for a particular ambition in your life, then you try to do the action for that, certainly you may reach to that goal. So in this way, there is a karma, and that karma leads to some of the effect. That is called metaphysical. When we talk about metaphysical, we think about something existence. Existence means existence in the phenomenal world. If you study hard, if you do labor, you can succeed. Something exists, something empirical, something evidential. That is a metaphysical understanding of action. Many people might have told you, or there is a story always people told that in the previous karma you might have done something good, as a result in this birth you are taking a human being shape, or because of your past karma and that was good, therefore you have taken the birth of a human being, not animal, not reptiles, nor any creature. If you might have done the bad karma in your past life, then certainly in this life you will be having some creature or lower animal, even a plant even. That is the story, people believe it. You know, karma theory. As you do in your action, it has a result in future. That is a metaphysical implication of understanding karma or action. There is another perspective for understanding the term karma or action, that is known as epistemological perspective. When I talk about epistemology, I mean that there is a knowledge involved with it, how we should understand that action, what really helps us to understand that phenomena which is known as action. That is a epistemological perspective, where from we can derive that action. Does action have some qualities? Is it the case that action exists independent of any other thing? Where we can find action? So all these questions are the epistemological questions. All those questions try to understand the concept action or karma, and particularly Vaisesika philosophy worry about that. Therefore, they have found out many of their arguments on understanding the concept action, and they claim that they submit their view that action is an independent category like guna, substance, then you have abhava or non-existence, so on and so forth. Now let us see how Vaisesika really emphasized on action to understand it from the epistemological perspectives. Karma, it is the third padartha in the list of 7 padarthas. As I said, there are 7 padarthas mentioned by Vaisesikas, and this is in the list it is the third one. Prior to that we had discussed dravya and guna. Karma theory is grounded in action. That is a common understanding. If I say do not do that karma, then I simply mean that do not do that action. Therefore, whenever one talks about karma, it always implies some kind of actions. The further I said, it can be understood in 2 perspectives. One is metaphysical, another is epistemological. As we sow, so we reap. It is a metaphysical perspective which talks about the existence, something evidential. Now epistemological perspective encompasses or embraces 2 pivotal questions. What are those? Can we claim action is a product of guna? This is very interesting. We had already discussed about substance and guna. Now the question comes, can we really think of, or can we really claim that action is derived from guna? Can we say so? This is a question. Or is it the case that guna derived from action? If you remember, when we are discussing guna, we said that guna or quality does not have further quality. It never generates any actions. Rather, for its own existence, it requires some element that is known as substance. Therefore, guna cannot exist independently of it. For its existence, it requires substance. Now, one question remains here. Then, is it the case that we derive action from guna? You say simply no, because quality does not generate any actions. It never even stands as a material cause for the conjunction and disjunction of any two objects. Therefore, we cannot derive action from guna. Neither guna can be derived from action. These are two independent padartha or independent categories. Then question arises, where it resides? How can we find action in a particular element or a component or a substance or an object? How can we find an action in an object? That means it presupposes that actions resides somewhere, and here Vaisesika claims that actions subsets in substance. It does not exist independent of substance. It does not have an independent existence. For its existence, it requires substance like guna. Guna cannot exist independently. For its existence, it requires substance. In the similar way, action cannot exist independently. For its existence, it requires substance. So therefore, if I move a chair, it is the substance which moves, and because of the action over here, I could able to move the substance known as table. So therefore, substance has actions, but action cannot exist independent of substance. The further question, they said, how is it rational to consider conjunction and disjunction are caused by action? Can we claim that because of the action we find the conjunction between two objects or disjunction between two objects? How can we claim that because of action we find conjunction and disjunction in the substances? And what is the justification for that? Now, these are the questions really subsumes the epistemological perspective for understanding the concept action or karma. Continuing further by asking these are the questions. Now, Kanchana, as you know, the founder of the Vaisesika philosophy, he defines by writing the sutra. He said that ekadravyam ajunam samyogo vibhagesu annapekya karanamiti karma lakshanam. What it means? This is in a Sanskrit shloka. He explains that karma resides in a substance. Karma cannot exist independent of it. Further said that it does not possess any attribute. Action is the one which does not possess any attribute. Like a substance possesses attribute, but a quality does not possess any further quality. In the same way, action does not possess any further qualities. Then in the third point, he said that it is an independent cause of conjunction and disjunction, such is the mark of action. First, action resides in a substance. It does not have any qualities, but it is the cause for the conjunction and disjunction between two substances, and this is the mark of action. Now, Kanchana clearly defines what really action is, and if all these features we will find, we can say that this is the action. Then further they said that action is not itself a property, but it is the cause of properties of a substance. It is a very interesting and philosophical. Action is itself not a property, because as you know that action is different from quality. Quality is an independent padartha, and action is an also independent padartha according to Vaisesika. Therefore, neither quality can be an action or an action can be a quality. So, this is ruled out. These two are independent category. But the question here is that it is because of the action, it is because of the movement in a substance we find different attributes in a substance. We identify a substance of having different attributes. Thus the said that neither quality can be an action nor an action can be a quality, but because of that action we find different qualities in a substance. For example, you as a student, now you are moving or you are walking. Walking is also an action, there is a movement. You move from x to y, so the distance, let us say 10 kilometers, you go by walk. In the time of x, the energy you have, the potentiality you have, the anxiety you have to go to y, certainly it is something positive. But once you reach to the y, then some of your qualities deteriorated. You do not have that energy and potential to walk further. Henceforth, it is because of the action we find different qualities in a substance. Thus, I repeat, I said that Vaisesika clearly emphasized that although an action cannot be derived from guna, an action cannot exist independent of substance, yet actions create some movement in a substance. As a result, we find different features in a substance. That is the uniqueness of the action. Now further, quality cannot be an action, as I said. Like guna, karma cannot exist independent of substance. So now you can find the uniqueness of an action and how really Vaisesika defines the uniqueness, individuality of action, which is known as astitva. Now the two other features remains. One is knowability. We know what is action because it defines. Another clearly defines what is action. Therefore, we can think of that action, we can know of that action. Nameability, there is a name. And what are those names? That we are going to discuss in this class. Now continuing further, they said that karma is different from guna. Karma is different from guna, and also vice versa. Guna is different from karma, because these two are independent categories or padartha according to Vaisesika philosophy. Guna is a passive property, whereas action is a dynamic and transient feature of a substance. Guna is a passive feature. Suppose I see an apple, say its color is red, that is a passive feature. It lies in the substance, apple. But what is action? If I drop that apple from the basket, it will fall on the earth, and once it will fall on the earth, then it takes in a different shape. It won't remain as I had seen some time back. Therefore, because of the action, we find different properties in it, and action here is a dynamic. It is not passive like qualities, and because of the dynamic nature, it identifies as a separate one, or it is identified as an independent padartha among 7 padarthas. Then they said it is an independent cause of the conjunction and disjunction of things. All actions must subsist in corporeal substances. Further, by explaining action, they said that action that we find in our day-to-day activities, certainly it relates to the objects that we find in the phenomenal world. Any action that we are talking about, certainly it relates to the different objects that we find in this phenomenal world. For example, if I say that I have moved the chair from place X to Y. Chair we find in this earth. I say that my dot pen, I am now moving my dot pen from this corner of table to that corner of table. Therefore, there is a movement. So, anything that we talk about action and movement, that all we find in this corporeal world, in the empirical world. But action we cannot find in case of eternal substances like soul, mind, space, etc. Because there is no movement we find in all these substances. They are the ultimate atoms and they exist eternally. We do not find any motion or action in the eternal substances because their position are unchanged. They remain as it is. They are eternal all the time. Therefore, we do not find any kind of action or movement in the eternal substances. We find action or movement in the empirical substances or the substances those found in the empirical world, but we do not find motion in the eternal substances because their position are fixed and unchanged. Wherever you find motion, there must be a change in it. Wherever you find a motion, movement or action, you find there is a change or some sorts of change we can observe in it. Since eternal substances are eternal, timelessly, permanently, we do not find any change in them. Therefore, we do not find motion or movement in case of eternal substances. The same thing I have written here. I said that all actions must subsist in corporeal substances such as earth, water, light, etc. But actions cannot subsist in eternal substances like space, time, soul, etc. No motion is found in eternal substances because they cannot change their position. Same thing I have explained to you. Now, moving further, as I said that actions are of different types. There are 5 kinds of action mentioned by Vaisesika philosophy. What are those 5? Now, you might have seen in your lifetime that whenever we pull out the spring get expanded. Whenever we leave the spring, then the spring compressed, isn't it? It's a motion. Whenever you throw, say, an object to the sky, it goes up till certain distance. Then because of the law of gravity, it falls down. So therefore, you find that there is a upward moment, there is a downward moment, there is an expansion, there is a contractions, and there is a motion, isn't it? The same thing Vaisesika categorically said that we find 5 kinds of action. One is utkepana, upward movement, then avakhepana, downward movement, then akunchana, contraction, then prasarana, expansion, then gamana, which is known as locomotion. Now, discussing the first point, utkepana, what they have explained is that it is the cause of the contact of a body with some higher region. For example, throwing a ball upward. As I said that whenever we throw an object towards the sky, we find that it goes to a certain extent. So it is an upward movement. Because of there is a force involved in it, it goes up. And in this case, you find it is the cause of the contact of a body with some higher region. Then automatically it falls down because of law of gravitation. So therefore, it says that it is the cause of the contact of a body with some lower region. Then example I have given over here, that throwing a ball from the house top, immediately will fall down. See, there are many ripe fruits, it falls down from the branch of a tree. Then further we find akunchana. Akunchana means contraction, compression, you say that. It is the cause of such closer contact of the parts of the body as it did not previously exist. Akunchana. Now if I leave a spring on the table, you find it is in the akunchana shape. Now if I tight all my fingers, if you see in my hand, if I tight all my fingers, that is clenching my fingers. It is not in the original position. The original position, maybe I am free. Once I am clenching my finger, that means I am tightening all my fingers. In the same way you find spring. And how it happens? Because of the movement, the parts of the body. There is a different parts. Therefore I said it is the cause of such closer contact of the parts of the body as it did not previously exist. My fingers, if you observe, it is as usual, but if I wish to clench it, I can clench it. That is a contraction. Now expansion. Again, if I will be try to move each part of body from another in a distance, then I can just do that. So now you can see that each finger of my hand now making a distance from another finger. Therefore now opening my fingers, so this is called prasarana. Whenever I am clenching, it is known as contraction, and whenever I am just expanding it, it is an expansion. That is called prasarana. The same thing I have written here. I said that it is the cause of the destruction of previous closer contact among the parts of a body. For example, opening one's clenching hand. Previously it was in contraction. Now once I move it, then we find that each finger have some distance from other finger. Therefore I said that opening one's clenching fingers, instead of hand you can say that clenching fingers. Now the last part, the last kind of action, which is known as gamana or locomotion, where you find that walking, you are riding your bicycle, you say swimming, climbing a coconut tree, and so on and so forth. All these include as locomotion or gamana. So therefore in toto we find 5 kinds of action. One is upward movement, second one is downward movement, and third one is akunchana or contraction. The fourth one is prasarana or the expansion, and the fifth one is gamana. Now you can see how Vaisesika talks about the reality and why we call Vaisesikas are realistic philosophers. Why they belong to realism school? Because whenever they talks about something on some issue, it deals with the phenomenal world and deals with correctly the phenomenal world, not in a imagined situation. Therefore they are realistic in that sense. Now I believe that you have understood the third padartha, which is known as action, that why it is an independent category as like guna, substance and other categories. Now moving further, now we will discuss the fourth category, which is known as samanya or generality. Now before discussing Vaisesika standpoint, now we will discuss, let us have a common understanding what we mean by generality. Once we can understand the generality, then I believe it will be very, very helpful for you to understand the Vaisesika standpoint on the concept samanya or generality. What is generality? Let us say the word horse. When I say the word horse or utter the word horse, I mean all the horses of different kinds in this world, both past, present and future. I never said that this horse or that horse. What I utter the word is that horse. Here horse is a general term, and horse is having certain features, because we have argued that a substance consists of some qualities and actions. A horse can ride, that is an action. A horse has certain features, some color, size, shape, these are the qualities. Okay? If this is the case, then the question arises, is it the case that whenever I talk about a horse, I talk about all the horses ranging from the past, present and future, and is it the case further that whenever I talk about the horse, the same kind of features and action should find in each individual of that horse. This is a provisional statement. We will discuss on this, how far Vaisesika agreed on this concept, or whether they do not agree on this concept at all. Now further question arises, there are different kinds of horse we find. Some horses are very small, some horses are very tall, some horses are run fast, some horses do not. If there are many features are different from one horse to another horse, what basis, on which ground we can claim that horse stands for a generic term, or a horse stands for a particular class of animal? This is another question. Now let us put this question as a provisional. Now move further. There is another question, again interestingly it arises, that if at all we are claiming that because of the horseness we find that X, Y, Z all animals belongs to the class horse, although they have a different features in it. Now if this is so, then what is that horseness is about? Where it resides? What is really the horseness? Let us assume that whatever you talk about the horseness, we accept that is the generality. Then where it resides? How it exists? Can it exist independent of a substance? Can it exist independent of quality as well as action? What really is it? How we can understand this concept, generality or commonality? Now all this is so that Vaisesika have discussed while discussing the concept Samanya or generality. Now the three questions that I have stated to you, that is the concern for the Vaisesika for understanding the concept or ideas Samanya or generality. Now let us discuss what is Vaisesika's standpoint on this concept. It is the fourth category of the Vaisesika Padarthas. Things of the certain class bear a common name because they possess some common nature. Things of the certain class bear a common name because they possess some common nature, but not the feature. I repeat, things of the certain class bear a common name because they possess common nature. What is that common nature? And how we can understand the common nature? That is the question. He said that we see different horses, horse X, horse Y, horse Z, and because of that commonness, because of that horseness, we identify that these are the animals belong to a class horse, although they are different from their features. Someone may be tall, someone may run fast, someone may not run fast, so and so. Although their features are different from one to another, but because of the commonness, we identify that X, Y, Z animals are known as horse. Here if you see that, the argument, the logical argument, they said that because of that commonness, that is the identity, that is the uniqueness, and we can think of that uniqueness. Although horse X, horse Y, horse Z are different from each other because of their features, but something is common among these three. Therefore, we call them that these animals are horses. And because see this uniqueness, we identify the generality, and generality has a particular identification in this context. Further, we can think of what is that commonness makes us to claim that these three animals having a particular name horse. Here we find astitva, here we find gyatva, which is knowable or thinkable. The last one is nameable. We name that objects or name that those animals as horse. Therefore, Samanya is an independent category among other categories, as like guna, substance and action. Therefore, said that whenever I talk about the cow, whenever I talk about horse, it implies that the horseness in an animal. It implies that there is a class exists, and in that class there are different individuals exist. Although they have a different features, yet they have a one particular nature, and because of that nature we are able to identify that animal belongs to a particular class, and we name that class, let us say cow, horse, so and so forth. Now moving further, they said that generally speaking, something common among objects of experiences is called generality. We find something common among horse X, Y, Z. Therefore, we say that this commonness is nothing but the generality or samanya. But any notion of commonality cannot be considered as samanya. Anything that you find common cannot be considered as samanya. For example, if you see, say, juice, a fruit juice, a glass of fruit juice, then you see a glass of water, then you see, then if you see a glass of salty water, then if you see a glass of other color liquid, all are liquid, there is a common liquid. But can we say all these belong to a particular class? This question arises. So for example, cow also have animality, dog also have animality, fox, horse, there are many animals, they have also animality features. Can we claim, can we bring them in one class? Can we claim all these animals, cat, horse, dog, etc., to a one category, saying that these are known as exodus or something? We cannot say so, because although some commonality we find, but there are differences. And now for that reason, Kanchana said that any notion of commonality cannot be considered as samanya. He defines samanya is that which is eternal and resides in its individuals of having the inherent relation. He said that samanya is eternal. Samanya is eternal and it resides in all the individuals, members of that class. Then only we can find out what is samanya, what is the commonality among them. Further, I am repeating what Vaisesika said. Vaisesika said that samanya is an eternal. Samanya is eternal and it resides in all the individuals, members of that class. And henceforth, they have given a unique distinction to the concept samanya or generality. Further, they said, in other words, commonality is eternal and having inseparable relation with its distinct individuals. Continuing further, Vaisesika further said the class essence corresponds to the class concept. What is the class essence? You find that there are different individuals, so different horses, horse X, horse Y, horse Z. There is an essence among all the members of that group, and that essence is nothing but the generality or the commonality. Therefore, they said that if you can understand the concept class essence, it corresponds to the class concept. Class essence corresponds to the class concept. Now further, they said that universal inheres in all the individuals belonging to a class, as I have discussed with you. But the example they have given, cowness inheres in all the individuals of the cow. there are many cows, but cowness is one. So they make a clear distinction. When they said that there is a generality we find which is known as class essence or the class concept, there they said that the individual cow is different from the notion generality of the cow. Therefore they said that cowness is the class essence that we find among all the members of that particular class. So cowness we find among all these cows that we find both past, present and future. Therefore they say that the individual cow may subject to birth and death. An individual cow may subject to go to that cycle of birth and death, but the cowness as an essence which remain unchanged, which is in eternal. Therefore they said that cowness is an eternal and permanent phenomenon that we find among all the individuals of the cow. Therefore cowness is an unique of its identification. It is an unique in its nature. Unlike an individual cow, it never perishes, it never falls in the cycle of birth and death. Further they said that there are many cows, but cowness is one. Individual cow may subject to birth and death, but cowness is eternal. It exists timelessly. Samanya is of different kinds. Further they said that after explaining the concept, after elucidating the concept Samanya, they said that Samanya is of different kinds and depends on its expansion. And there are three kinds of Samanya they have clearly emphasized. Now let us discuss what are these three kinds of Samanya. Parasamanya, it is a larger extension, Parasamanya. Then Aparasamanya, it is a very lower part of generality or the ultimate proximity. And neither para nor apara, the in between place, we find some generality which is known as Paraparasamanya. I will give an example. Parasamanya, which is a larger extension. In that case I say animalhood. When I talk about animal, it includes all the creatures. It includes say tiger, bears, lions, deer, monkey, human beings, so on and so forth. The domain over here is so big, wider and vast. That is a generality, because among all these creatures we find animality. Therefore I say animalhood. Now if I will be narrowing down the concept or samanya of animalhood, I will find beinghood. Beinghood talks about all human beings, having male, female, children, each and every one. Therefore you can see that although beinghood falls under the broader extension of generality, animalhood, but still if I can narrow down the concept animalhood, we find beinghood. In other words, beinghood as generality may be part of the generality animalhood. Now again, if I will be narrowing down my generality concept of beinghood, I can say manhood. So manhood here it talks about only to those men or male sibling. It never talks about children, nor talks about any women. Therefore you can say that the manhood is the ultimate proximity of having the generality. We find different men, that is a manhood, and there is a common essence among all the men. Therefore we find manhood. Again, if I will be expanding it, or if you want to incorporate manhood in beinghood, then we find men, women, children, so on and so forth. Again, if the beinghood we want to incorporate in the animal creatures, then we can say animalhood. So therefore beinghood is the in between or mediatory which connects both that parasamanya and aparasamanya. Therefore it is known as paraparasamanya. Here parasamanya stands, which is a larger extension, it stands for animalhood. Aparasamanya stands for a manhood, and in between that paraparasamanya which stands for the beinghood. So, in this way Vaisesika system argues that how we can understand the concept Samanya or generality. Further they said, who said? Kanada said community and particularity depend upon the intellect to indicate their existence. The community, as I say, that community of class say cow, community say horse, community say dog, community say human being, and particularity, particular cow, particular horse and particular human being depend upon the intellect to indicate their existence. If I say that cow, that means I mean that all the cows, all the members of that cow belong to a particular class cow. So, it is an intellect. Because of the intellect we can understand how many cow, how many possibly members of cow exist or belong to that particular class. When I talk about horse, I can understand because of my intellect how many members of that horse can belong to that particular class which is named as horse. Therefore, they said that community and particularity depend upon the intellect to indicate their existence. Further, they said that all these are conceptual constructs. Whenever I talk about say horse, it is true that I cannot perceive all the horses or members of the horses in this earth, because I have a limited knowledge. I cannot see both past, present and future, but certainly I can conceptualize the fact that in the past also those are the animals which already died, they may belong or they may fall under the class say cow. Even in future, because of the essence of cowness, I can claim that these are the animals maybe belong to the concept cow if they have so and so essence and features. Further, they said that while explaining that the Samanya is a conceptual construct, further they said that they have an ontological existence. The Samanya, as you can see, that is a conceptual construct, it has its ontological existence. They said that because of this commonness we identify a particular animal which belong to a particular class. We identify a particular horse by stating that this horse belongs to a particular class named as horse, although he or she does not have some of the features which we supposed to see in that animal, we supposed to claim in that animal, yet we can claim that animal as horse. So, therefore, they say that they are conceptual construct, although they are a conceptual construct, yet they have an ontological existence. Now, in the next class we will see Buddhist criticism, that how really Buddhists criticize the Nyaya Vaisesika concept on Samanya, and how Nyaya really defends their standpoint by saying that how their explanation on the concept Samanya is a unique one. And further we will also argue that how logically both Buddhist school and Nyaya Vaisesika school argue with each other for establishing the concept Samanya or generality that we find in the form of class among all the members of a particular class. I hope you have now understood the concept action as an independent category and Samanya as an independent category, and few elements remains to discuss about Samanya. We will discuss in the next class. Thank you.